Okay, so now we come to the key part, which is switching out IronRouter for FlowRouter. And I know a lot of you have done that transition already, and I've done it once before for Telescope. But there's also some people out there with legacy apps that are still on IronRouter, so I think it's useful to go over the steps involved. And I think there's basically 3 steps. So looking at the code base here, the first step will be just rewriting the routes to use the FlowRouter API. So in IronRouter, you write them like this with a name, path, and template, and FlowRouter is a little bit different. Yeah, so you put the path first, and the template is actually inside the action, and then the name is optional. So it's basically the same thing, but there is a little bit of work involved. So that's the first thing. The second thing will be searching our code base for every time we use the router. So if we search for router dot, we see all the uses of the IronRouter API. So mostly for router.current, also router.go, and that's probably about it. Also router.path. Yeah, so all these will need to be switched out. And then finally, maybe we are also using IronRouter's helpers in our templates. So yeah, the path4 helper. So out of the box, FlowRouter doesn't have a helper, but there's this really cool package, FlowRouter helpers, which provides a path4 helper that works pretty similarly to IronRouter. So there you go, 3 things we need to do, so let me do them and come back. Okay, so I just got done switching to FlowRouter, and I'll go over the changes real quick. So first of all, I ended up adding 4 packages total. FlowRouter, the helpers, which I talked about, Blaze layout, which is required to display templates and manage the layout, even though in our case we're managing the layout inside our templates. And finally, Picker. So Picker is another package that basically takes care of routing on the server. So unlike IronRouter, FlowRouter doesn't do server-side routing. So if you need that for to output an API or to process remote API calls or anything, you might want to add Picker. So, and by the way, I'm reviewing the changes in source tree. It's a really cool Git app. It's free, and it lets me see what I just did at a glance. So, like I said, I had to go through the templates and check if the helpers were working correctly. So one thing that IronRouter did for you is it would automatically fetch the current data context and apply it to the helper. So in this case, it will take the user object and try to apply it to this path. So if the path requires an ID parameter and user has this ID parameter, it will use that. Now, FlowRouter helpers doesn't do that, so that's why I had to manually specify ID equals ID. And I had to do that for a bunch of routes. So that was a change. Obviously, router.current.params won't work, so I had to switch it out for FlowRouter.getParam and then the name of the parameter. Something that's important to note is that FlowRouter also has a current object, so FlowRouter.current, but this is not reactive. So you should avoid using it when you can, and instead use the dedicated API functions like getParam, getQueryParam, and so on. So this is what I did here, FlowRouter.getParam. Again, specifying the parameter because it's it doesn't work implicitly anymore, and basically a lot of that. Now I also ended up rewriting all the route definitions. So instead of this.route, it became FlowRouter.route. So that took a little while, but there's nothing too tough there. And yeah, the way I suggest doing this, and this works for Meteor in general, is do everything on the server first and get the app to run without errors on the server, and then you can debug client-side errors in your browser console. So yeah, that's what I did, and now it works again, except using FlowRouter.